What's good, YouTube? This is Boxingwave as we continue with these 2023 awards. This video is going to be all about performances. I picked 10 fights where I think the fighter just performed so well. It was one of the best performances of the year. It's not in any particular order, really. I just kind of wrote the best performances of the year, in my opinion. Some of these I already talked about. Some of these performances I did cover live. Some of them are being other 2023 award winners, but here you're getting some of the fights where the fighter that won, their stock has risen. They climbed in a pound for pound, or they might be on an upset list, or whatever. Maybe they're coming off a loss and they came back and performed great. So anyway, these are 10 fights where I think that the fighter that won basically had one of the best performances. And I'm not basing that solely on what they did in the ring, but who they were fighting, But anyway, I just want to I'm going to start off with my number 10 fight. Again, this is not really in order. I'm just giving you a list. I have to bring up one prospect. This is the one and only prospect fight that I added to this list, and that's Andy Cruz against Giovanni Strafon. All right, now I know Strafon is not no elite fighter, and this is Andy Cruz's second pro fight. All right, but we already know the background. Cuban fighter, 2 Olympic gold medalists. He beat Keyshawn Davis a lot of times, and a lot of his buzz is based off those wins, and other people he's beaten in the Olympics. But I mean, this was his second profile, and I saw his first pro fight, and I was like, all right, he looks good, but I wasn't like, wow. I wasn't like, wow. But when I saw this fight, and being that he is with the father of Jerron Boots Ennis and trainer Bozy Ennis, you can see some of the boots in him, but you can see that amateur background that he has and the experience and just the overall skill set mixed together. You see the athleticism mixed with the skills. And in this fight here, he looked phenomenal. And I know people are going to still say he doesn't have that much power yet. And maybe it'll come. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. But as far as skills, man, talent, this is probably my personal favorite prospect performance that I've seen. And again, once we talking about prospect, we're not talking about him, fighting other top tier fighters, because prospects, working their way up. And they're not fighting top contenders, but still, what I've seen from him put everybody in the lightweight division on watch. And not just the other prospects, but some of the other contenders, because he does have that experience, all right, in the Olympics. All right. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. I had to put Joseph Parker against Wilder. I know I put him in the upset video where, it was a top upset. I know a lot of people picked Parker to win, and I know Wilder was rusty in this fight. But it was still a great performance because, again, unlike a lot of other fighters that did well against Wilder, and was having good rounds against Wilder and stuff. I mean, even Fury was doing well against Wilder and got dropped in 2 of those 3 fights that they had. Whereas I have to give Parker a lot of credit because his game plan worked and he executed it well against a dangerous person, a dangerous puncher, someone that, Wilder can be outboxed, but Parker stuck to the game plan. It worked with him the whole fight, and Wilder just really couldn't figure him out. He couldn't get the timing down, and Parker just executed. It's all about the execution, and Parker didn't have any points in this fight where he was in trouble. He wasn't hurt or anything like that. He dominated Deontay Wilder, and you have to say that's one of the better performances of the year because, yes, Wilder can be outboxed, but who did it as smoothly as Joseph Parker? I don't think anyone has. In Wilder's losses, we know Fury stopped him in the second fight and destroyed him in the second fight. But as far as going the distance with Wilder without having to get hurt or get knocked down or anything like that, I think Parker put himself on the map, back in the mix with the top heavyweights. And then, I still want to do more content about him too. But anyway, very good performance. Second fight that I got here, I got Katie Taylor against Cameron in the second fight. Again, I brought this up too before. One of the better fights, probably the best female fight of the year. Taylor just did so much better in this fight. The performance was better. Being that she was older, she's getting older. That's why I I didn't have much confidence in her winning this fight because Cameron won the first fight, and Taylor, I'm thinking like maybe she's too old. She's going up in weight, fighting a bigger fighter, a girl that can, I think Taylor was a better boxer going into fights, both fights, but I didn't feel like Cameron was that far off as far as a skill set, and being that she was bigger and did the pressure. And I felt like Katie would have to match her, I would say her cardio, her volume in order to beat her. But Katie actually just outboxed her, fought smart, had a better IQ, better timing, and Cameron just couldn't figure it out. And Katie beat her kind of easily this time around. It was a lot more wider than Cameron's win in the first fight. Katie did it without too much struggle. It was a good performance. I have to put it on the list. Next fight down, I have to say Devin Haney against Regis Prograis. One of his two bigger wins of this year. I know the Lomachenko was very controversial, but this fight here, Haney, Haney was a favorite to win. I know Prograis was not coming off a good performance against Zaria, but Prograis, lefty fighter, big puncher, and Haney was coming off of the win against Lomachenko, the win that everybody hates, but he was fighting a southpaw that most people felt that he lost to. And to go against another southpaw, moving up in weight, fighting a puncher like that, a lot of people thought that Prograis would get the knockout because he would land the big punch against Haney. And that didn't happen at all. The opposite happened. Haney destroyed him, outclassed him, shut him out, knocked him down, schooled him. Anyway, whatever way you want to call it, Haney, this was his best performance in his career. Best performance. I mean, whether you think Prograis was going to lose or not, Haney made it look extremely easy. In fact, he beat him in every way imaginable, from the outside, from the inside. He looked like the stronger fighter. He beat him every way. You know what I mean? And he's the guy that moved up. So this is definitely one of the greatest performances of this year. And going to the other fight right after that, Teofimo Lopez against Josh Taylor. Another great performance. Josh Taylor is still undefeated. We know that he didn't look good against Jack Catterall. He's coming off a layoff. He's coming off an injury. So I get that. But Teofimo Lopez hasn't been at 140 that long. And he hasn't looked great at 140. Sandor Martin, that first fight he had, he looked like he was brushing off, some of the rust, the dust that he had, leaving, coming off of the George Kambosos loss. But when he fought Sandor Martin, it was a really questionable fight because he get knocked down in the fight and everything. I was there at that fight. It was a really, 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 really close fight. And to fight Josh Taylor right away, this early, being at 140, Josh Taylor, maybe not the perfect time to fight, for him. And I know he's probably struggling to make 140 at this time. But Teo, man, just schooled him again. It was just like Devin Haney, just overpowering him, hurting him, outboxing him, and outworking him at points too. Josh Taylor's a guy that was being outboxed in certain points of his fights. Victor Postol, Regis Prograis. There's probably maybe one or two more where Josh Taylor struggled a little bit in certain fights. Even in the Jack Catterall fight where he was dropped in the fight, and he seemed to always figure out a way to beat guys by dogging them out. And this wasn't the case. Teo did good all fight. So he definitely had one of the better performances of the year by beating the undefeated Josh Taylor. All right. And the next one, Zhilei Zhang against Joyce, both times. You got to include performances, best performances up there, one of the best performances out there, because Joyce, again, I put him in the upset video. Joyce just looking like he was unstoppable. Not the greatest boxer, not the greatest technician. Certainly doesn't have the greatest defense. But him and his size, his volume, his cardio, his pressure, his jab, just being too much, being the first to stop Joseph Parker, just seemed like he was just a dominant force and a guy that no one really wanted to fight, Yes, we see the holes in his game, but no one was able to really exploit them. But we go into a fight with Zhang, who had, the questionable loss against Philip Hergovich, and it didn't look that great in previous fights. But going there against Joyce, who was a monster at this point. A lot of people would consider him at this point to be a top 5 heavyweight. And you don't stop him not just once but twice. And the second time around, you just totally knocked him out. You got to give Zhang credit, being the underdog, a huge underdog in the first fight. And then also, the fight was definitely even on the odds. Even when you stopping him in the first fight, people still didn't believe he was going to win a rematch. And I remember that because I remember reading comments on this stuff. So anyways, Zhang, you got to definitely give him one of the best performances this year in 2 fights. Another one is Emmanuel Navarete. I know people probably won't care for him right now because the Cashapp fight, but the Emmanuel Navarete performance against Oscar Valdez was such a good performance, man. I mean, people forget about it now because it's not his most recent fight. But at the time, man, the Navarete fight in Valdez, it was such a good performance. Very, very good performance against a good boxer, a multi-divisional champion, a guy that's always been tough against Oscar Valdez. It's just like Navarete came into the fight not looking great. Certain fights, he just doesn't look good. But at this time, he fights the best fighter on his resume against Valdez, and he comes out fast, almost knocking him down early, hurting him and just dominating Valdez. I mean, it was a very good fight, and it was competitive, but it was a competitive beatdown. Navarete looked fine at the end of the fight. Valdez looked all busted up. His whole eye was swelling. It was just such a good performance for him, especially coming off of that, not winning. He did get the stoppage. I forgot the other gentleman he fought where he got knocked down. And again, Navarete had fights where he started off slow, but this was the first fight I seen him start off fast and do so well earlier rounds. One of the best performances of the year, and definitely made him one of the best fighters to look out for, multi-divisional champion at this point. And it wasn't until the Cashapp fight where he looked beatable. But again, at this fight here against Valdez, where he stepped up again, he was able to put on a show. And you got to give him credit for that. All right. Last few fights, we definitely got to go with Jesse Bam Rodriguez against Sonny Edwards, man. Definitely one of the best performances of the year. One of the best matchups of the year. 2 guys who are in the flyweight division that most people feel are the 2 best guys at the flyweight division unification match. This was a fight. This didn't get as much hype and push because of just the schedule, all these fights that happened in December. So yes, these are the smaller guys, but quality matchups. This was it. This was the one. This was Bam's toughest challenge. In my opinion, I thought it was. Most people thought it was. And the same with Sonny. And Bam just outclassed him. He beat him in every way imaginable. And I think Sonny could have done better strategically. I thought he could have fought a better fight, switch a couple of things. But at the end of the day, Bam just beat him. Clearly beat him. I mean, just even the last couple of fights where he looked like, okay, he didn't look all great. And, like he did against Quadras and Run Visai and stuff. But in this fight here, this was his best performance in his career against the best fighter he's ever faced. And you got to put him on a list, man. He's definitely one of the best performances of the year, clearly. Again, next fight. I mean, this is the last 2, man. The last 2, we already know what the last 2. And these happen to happen on the same week by the number 1 and number 2 pound for pound, in my opinion, and most people's opinion. You got Inoue against Fulton. How can you not? Like, I mean, damn, this was supposed to be the one. This was supposed to be the real test. Was it going to be Fulton, the bigger guy, up at 122? Most people consider him to be the best unified champion, undefeated, had great wins at 122. So most people consider him to be the top dog against Inoue, who was moving up, went straight for the top dog on his first fight, straight to the top guy at 122. And Inoue beat him down, man. I might have given Fulton maybe one round of the fight. But Inoue destroyed him, man. Destroyed him, outboxed him, outslicked him, outsped him, outpowered him, out everything. Just beat him up and stopped him, destroyed him, sent him back to Philly from Japan. That's crazy. I mean, I'm super hyping it up, but you had to see it. You guys know we were all there. We were all up 4 or 5 in the morning covering the fight, man, like we do. And it was just a huge, shocking performance on an even more difficult fight to call, for at least for me. I'm not talking about the world, but for me, it was probably one of the most difficult fights to predict because we just don't know. You're not only moving up, but you're also fighting the best fighter that you've ever fought, in my opinion, at least at the time, in many people's eyes. And you went in there and you beat him easier than almost everybody else you beat. I mean, even Tapales this past week even did better than Fulton. All right, but anyway, big performance, and the other biggest performance and the biggest performance of the year, in my opinion, is Terrence Bud Crawford against Errol Spence Jr. Crazy. I mean, fight performance of the year, in my opinion, against another pound for pound top 5 fighter in the world. You guys finally got it on. You know, of course, this could have happened at a better time. I wish it happened 4 years ago. You know, I wish it did happen. You know, before all of these other fights took place. I wish it happened before the car accident. I wish it happened before the eye injury. I wish it happened before a lot of fights that happened. But you know what? We got it. And they were both undefeated still. And both, it was still 50-50. You still had a lot of Spence people saying he would win. You had a lot of Bud people saying he would win. But Bud came in there and beat him down. Another fight where Spence not only did he not win a round, but he got beat down. He looked like the smaller guy. He looked like the weaker guy. He looked like he couldn't box for shit. Terrence Bud Crawford has made a fighter that looked better than every other welterweight. And pound for pound, with one of the best boxers in the world, he made him look average. Proven. 3-belt unified champion. Errol Spence went on his platform and beat him, went over to PBC and beat him down and stopped him, destroyed him. Now, one of the worst beatings we see. I mean, the amount of punishment. They made memes about Errol Spence because of the way his face looked. They were trying to say he looked like Martin from when Tommy Hearns beat him up. I mean, at the end of the day, it is one of the best performances. And these are some good matches, especially Bud and Spence. Inoue Fulton, Bam and Sonny. We're talking about top tier guys, you know, undefeated fighters that were just outclassed. They weren't even close fights. They got smoked. So these are some of the best performances that we got in 2023. I mean, thank God we had a great year. But anyway, these are my 10 best performances of the year. Leave comments. Let me know what you think. Any fights that I missed, leave them in the comments. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. What are you waiting for at this point? All right. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.